Game time, we diving deep. From the stairs to the play, no time for sleep. Below the surface, we're working, we set the scene. Who's your host? Scott Levine. Below the surface.
Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 5 of Below the Surface. This is where stats meet strategy. If you're new here, I'm Scott, your host, and in today's episode, we're going to be starting out talking all about running backs. I did a lot of research for this one, and we're going to be diving into historical trends, age-related production, and dynasty draft traps so you can avoid the wrong players and find value. Then we'll zoom out and cover 12 fantasy tips that'll help dominate your leagues in 2025. Whether you're grinding redraft, building in Dynasty, or firing off best ball entries, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Let's rewind to the early 2000s, the golden age of true workhorse running backs. From 2000 to 2009, we averaged about 15 running backs per year hitting peak fantasy seasons. These were bell cow guys on the field for all 3 downs, getting fed and putting up the elite fantasy numbers we love to see. In my research, the study I found that was from the years 2010 to 2021 showed that number has dropped to just 12 backs per year. NFL backfields have changed. Committees have taken over, roles became more specialized, and touches are now split more. The every down workhorse is not nearly as common. It's not just the value that's changed, it's when these running backs peak too. In the 2000s, the average age of a peak season was 26.25 years old, and in 2010 to 2021, that average dropped to 25.27, nearly a full year earlier. Now let's define what we mean by peak season before we go any further. Here's the criteria for a peak fantasy season in PPR league. 15 or more PPR points per game. That's a high-end RB2 and a reliable weekly starter. It's equivalent to totaling 255 total points over the course of a season, which is really strong production. 17 plus points per game. That's RB1 territory with league winner upside. And 300 plus total fantasy points. Those are the guys that can carry you to the playoffs. RB1 overall potential. All data I have found in this study are based on a minimum of 7 games played. I have filtered out small samples, and when you apply those filters, the takeaway becomes really obvious. 57% of all RB1 seasons happen between ages 23 to 26. For the RB2 production, 15 plus PPR points per game scored, 59% fall between the ages of 23 to 27. After 28 years old, that production drop-off hits really hard. This running back position ages like milk, not wine. We know the quarterback ages well into their 30s, not the running backs. Now let's focus in on the numbers for players who show true consistency. Running backs who average 17 plus points per game over a season. Looking at the data from 2010 to 2021, there were 109 of those seasons, and they tell a real clear story. The average age for those seasons is just 24.8 years old. 76% came from players between the ages 22 to 26. And only 5 of those 109 seasons came from backs aged 29 or older. That comes out to just 4.5%. The cliff isn't coming at the age 30 seasons anymore. It's coming earlier. This last season that we had was just a real anomaly, with a bunch of 26-plus-year-old running backs changing teams and all producing at a high level. That's not common. We had Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, Aaron Jones, and Tony Pollard all switch teams and finish above ADP. They were all values and older than 26 years old, with Henry, Mixon, and Aaron Jones being 28-plus. So that was just kind of crazy to see last year, and I'm betting against that trend continuing. I still trust the data that the older players are typically riskier picks and drafted closer to their ceilings. So what does this all mean for our fantasy strategy? In dynasty leagues, your prime running back window is age 22 to 26. After that, it starts to become a steep decline. If you're holding a running back past the age of 28 in dynasty, that is definitely starting to push it and you're beginning to play with fire. There are a few exceptions and players' values that are lower due to their age and you can ride off into the sunset with, and hopefully they'll be able to be a part of your championship team. But for most 28-year-olds, it's time to start thinking that exit strategy and moving on from them. I want to turn this into some actionable advice for you guys. Here's a quick Dynasty cheat sheet from me to you guys. Let's start with the running backs to buy and build around. Bijan Robinson, running back for the Atlanta Falcons, set to be the centerpiece of this modern pass-heavy offense under Zach Robinson. Bijan's elite talent and receiving upside make him a league-winning pick and player to acquire. The next guy is Jeanty, a rookie from this 2025 class. He's a tackle-breaking machine with solid hands. Jeanty will be a part of this Raiders offense led by head coach Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly, who love to feed their back, and he should be just a great overall weapon for this team. The next guy is another obvious name, Jahmyr Gibbs from the Detroit Lions. These are real centerpiece players, so it makes sense why they're such big names. These are guys you want to trade for, even despite the price, even if you have to pay a little extra for these guys. Gibbs now, he has explosive efficiency, and he's meeting some expanded workload. He seems that he's going to be the starter this season and get those touches early, and he's a mismatch nightmare for all linebackers and safeties, and one of the best offensive environments. And lastly, Devon Achane. If he's healthy, he's got that unmatched speed and pass catching ability, and in Mike Macdonald's scheme, he's got those weak breaking upside, and he doesn't even need that many touches to do it. Now, the next guys are three more running backs who are starting to hit their prime, but they're running backs to monitor closely. They're aged 25 to 26. First guy is Jonathan Taylor, Indianapolis Colts, still one of the league's best pure running backs, but his ceiling really depends heavily on Anthony Richardson's development and the red zone tendencies in Indianapolis's run-heavy scheme. Next, James Cook, running back for the Buffalo Bills. James Cook showed major growth in the touchdown department last year, and he's just a great receiver. With Ray Davis and this little holdout thing that is going on currently throughout training camp, we'll see what happens this next year and keep a close eye on him. And next, Ken Walker, a home run hitter back with elite burst, but with Zach Charbonnet's presence and his inability to stay healthy over the course of the season, that may prevent him from being that true workhorse back. And then the backs that currently to fade in Dynasty, 28 plus. These are more controversial takes, I would say. Alvin Kamara with limited touchdown upside over the last few years, below average O-line and quarterback play, and he consistently misses game ever since his rookie season. Kamara currently is strictly a floor play at this current stage of his career, with risk of being shut down early even to the team's poor play. Next is Christian McCaffrey. He's still elite, but at 29 with a long injury history, a lot of touches, and they have a solid running back, Isaac Rendo, behind him. CMC is a textbook sell high. I see people all over him this year as a first round pick, so if you can get extra value out of him for Dynasty, I would sell for picks or a younger back. And now Joe Mixon comes in with a concerning foot injury, and he's running behind a below average offensive line. Mixon had a great season last year, but this is the time to sell, and if people aren't as up to date on his foot injury, maybe you can capitalize on that. With the older backs, you're more likely to be able to ride the volume in redraft, but in Dynasty, you have to be ruthless and make those tough decisions and get rid of guys maybe even a year too early. Also, draft capital plays a huge role too. First round running backs tend to peak earlier and average nearly 13 fantasy points per game at their peak, which is higher than any other draft spot. This is because they get immediate opportunity and they're on the field from day one. So draft capital is one of the most important things to look into, especially early on, players getting onto the field. There is one group that breaks that curve, and that's the early declares who dominated and come out by their junior season. We've seen guys dominate before their age of 21, like LaShawn McCoy, Clinton Portis, Maurice Jones-Drew. All three were second or third round picks, day two picks, and all three exploded in their first few seasons. Some more recent comps, Jonathan Taylor, Kenneth Walker, and Breece Hall. These guys were day two picks that came out by their junior year with great athletic peaks. The lesson is the early declares with draft capital can produce immediately, but their window might even close fast as well. So let's just quickly recap the key Dynasty takeaways. Sell those running backs when they hit the age of 28. Build around players between the age of 22 to 25. Draft capital accelerates both opportunity and potentially might lead to them falling off quicker. Also, you can't count on unicorns like Frank Gore or LaDainian Tomlinson, guys who lasted 12 plus years in the league. So buy those young players and don't fall in love with your players as well. In Dynasty, I have made countless RB trades, moving valuable young players for picks or younger running backs. And now on my team, I currently have Jahmyr Gibbs and Devon Achane leading the crew as my starting backs. Selling your players at the peak value is never a bad idea in Dynasty because getting a haul of assets for one great player can be a win-win strategy for both fantasy managers depending on your guys' roster. All right, we just went deep on the running back life cycle in Dynasty leagues and there's some historical context beyond that for redraft. Now let's zoom out because winning fantasy leagues takes more than player analysis. It takes smart, sharp strategy. And that's what this next segment is all about. 12 under the surface tips that will give you a real edge in any format. So here are my 12 under the surface fantasy tips. And some of them will go hand in hand with each other. Tip number 1, target rushing quarterbacks, especially late rounds. Rushing quarterbacks are cheat codes in fantasy. Any quarterback who can run for over 500 yards and score 8+ touchdowns on the ground gives you massive weekly upside. You don't always have to pay up. Grab those mobile quarterbacks who will be starting and go in the later rounds. Think year 2 Lamar Jackson, 2022 Justin Fields, or even last year rookie Jaden Daniels going outside the top 8 rounds in those seasons. Tip number 2, tier-based drafting beats rankings. Rankings are static and don't show if a group of players in a range are equivalent or there's a big drop-off. Tiers help you spot those positional drop-offs and highlight value when it's still on the board. When the last guy in your tier is there, you take him, and that'll help you guys avoid those panic picks. Tip number 3, don't just draft to fill your lineup, draft for upside. So what I mean by that is if you have your 2 running backs, your 2 receivers, and a flex, that doesn't mean you necessarily have to take a quarterback or tight end next. Sometimes you want to draft those high-end bench stash plays or high upside handcuffs because your bench should really be full of potential league winners early on. Also, ignore bye weeks as well. You can fill your lineup with trades or waiver wire moves. You win your league by targeting upside, so don't get too attached to your players either. Approach your roster like a savvy day trader. Be ready to buy, sell, or pivot when a player is overperforming and underperforming, just like they would a stock. Tip number 4, take the value when positional runs happen. When drafters panic and reach during a positional run, you pivot. If 6 running backs go in a row, grab that elite wide receiver or tight end that falls. You'll always be able to trade from positions of strength. So if you have 4 great wide receivers, you can move one of them for a good running back in season. Tip number 5, target rookie running backs and hang on to them. Late round running backs behind aging or injury prone starters are lottery tickets. One injury or benching, and they're RB1s. Think Bucky Irving last year, who didn't even need a real injury to overcome the role and was just a league winner. This year, I'm targeting Omarion Hampton and Caleb Johnson in 2025. Tip number 6, use waiver priority or FAB early. FAB is the free agency acquisition bidding, where you have a set amount of money over the course of the season to spend on waiver wire bids. Don't wait for the perfect storm or a guy to get injured to grab a player. Usually the players that show promise in the week 1 or week 2, that's often the guys who win you your leagues. So be aggressive and spend early, and don't worry if you overbid early. Get that guy. Tip 7, trade before the market reacts. Be early. You see a player spike in snaps or touches, but the production doesn't reflect it yet. It's not showing up in the box score. Like, say a player has back-to-back games with 9+ targets, but no touchdowns, buy them. If someone scores 2 touchdowns back-to-back weeks, but you don't think the volume is sustainable, sell. Timing is everything throughout the season, and grabbing a player before they hit their peak value, maybe you can make that move where you trade your overvalued player for someone who's undervalued. Tip 8, sell mid to late round wide receivers who start out hot, unless they're rookies. If a wide receiver drafted in round 7 suddenly ranks the wide receiver 10 after 3 weeks, that's a great sell window. It is okay if they are good the rest of the year. You still will have traded them at a high value. Flip for a position of need or package another player for a superstar. But rookies, hold them. Their breakouts might be real. Tip 9. Monitor usage trends, not just the box scores. Look at snap and target share, route participation, red zone usage, yards per route run, and even expected fantasy points. A player's opportunity tells you more than just their final box score stats. Tip 10. These last 3 tips that I'm about to share with you guys kind of all go hand in hand. I think they're all important, and I broke them up into 3 different tips. So tip 10, check playoff matchups before you draft. Your stars matter most in weeks 15 to 17. So if your top 3 players are facing elite defenses, you might be in trouble those weeks. So bump up players with softer playoff schedules, even if you are a little bit lower on them. Tip 11, stack your quarterback with his pass catchers. This works in redraft, not just best ball. Pairing your quarterback with a top wide receiver or tight end adds correlation to your lineup, and every touchdown pass boosts you twice. With stacking, it's typically best, in my opinion, to let the wide receiver dictate who you take at quarterback rather than the other way around. For example, taking a player like Brian Thomas Jr. might make me more inclined to take a Trevor Lawrence, except guys like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, you're going to have to take early without having a stack option with them. And you might miss out on a stack option because of the draft board. Stacking and correlation is just such a powerful tool. Last tip, tip number 12. Stacking and bringbacks work in redraft too. Like I just said, stacking's a powerful tool, but bringing back a wide receiver or running back from the opposing team can really raise your ceiling, especially for those playoff correlated weeks. If that game ends up in a shootout and you have the players from that game, your team is going to be almost unstoppable. So yeah, weeks 15 to 17, this is a really common strategy in DFS, daily fantasy sports, that we should be applying to redraft formats too. That's our last tip, everyone. So thanks for sticking with me on this deep dive. In this episode, we got to cover running backs and our favorite tips to share. If you got value from this episode, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Also, drop a comment, guys, with your favorite tip I shared. This channel is all about delivering real strategy, some sharp data, and no BS. If that's your thing, you're in the right spot. I appreciate every single one of you guys who tunes in. It really means a lot to me. And with that said, I'll see you next time on Below the Surface. Peace out.